Hello and welcome to Language Matters, a series on various components and aspects of language and language education in school and in teacher education. This series discusses various aspects of language teaching, learning in the classroom context and how language learning takes place inside the classroom as well as outside the classroom. Today we have a discussion on sign language, a very important component of teaching learning in the classroom. Important for children with hearing impaired, also children with others and teachers. We have Dr. Melissa Wellen from Department of Education in Languages and Social Science from Northeast Regional Institute of Education, a constituent of NCERT. Dr. Melissa is an expert in sign linguistics. She has done an extensive work in sign language and sign linguistics. Let's talk to her today. I am Meghanathan from Department of Education in Languages NCERT. Melissa, welcome to this discussion, and we thought that it is very important to have a discussion on sign language so that teachers and children come to know of the things. So let me pose you a very rudimentary basic question. What is sign language?
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me to give a talk about sign language. And we're in a time where, sign language in India started very slow. The concept of understanding what is sign language has come to us quite late compared to the Western countries. And taking your question, what is sign language? First of all, we have to understand the concept of language. What is language? People generally understand language as something which is spoken at the speech level. Anything besides the spoken form of language is not considered language.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And what do you understand by the concept of language, And that is the important thing that we need to go further. Language is just a medium to carry our thoughts.
It communicates.
It communicates your ideas, it communicates certain things. And then why do we communicate? Why do we have a language? These things need to be understood first of all before we talk about sign language. Because when we talk about sign language, we have to get away with that notion that a language is a language only when it is produced by our mouth, the air coming out from our lungs. We cannot imagine language besides other than that. A language has to be written, so hence sign language is not a language. So those misperception of what is sign language has to be rectified, review and re-look into, because when we talk about language, the medium is just the tools that we carry. Language is from our mouth, from our lungs, the air produced, verbally, orally, all that notion we have. Language is much more than that.
What is that?
It communicates ideas, like you said. It communicates ideas, thoughts, opinion, whatever. But where is that thought, opinion lies? Not in our mouth, in our brain, right?
Yes.
So hence language comes from where? From the brain.
Yes.
Right? So the medium which we carry is speech, which is the normal accepted form of language. So when somebody starts speaking with their hands because they cannot produce the speech spoken by the larger community, hence they perceive that language as something invented, that not natural.
Yes.
It comes because they need to fulfill that gap that is missing. They need to fulfill that gap that, like for example, in a classroom, a teacher who can hear definitely will not use sign language. Right? So she will be speaking. If there's a deaf student in the classroom, what happens to that deaf child? He can't hear.
Yeah.
So of course, now what is sign language? Technically, we've understood that sign language is a language spoken by the deaf community, coming from whether the deaf community is a smaller group or a big group, but it originates naturally from a group of people who doesn't speak orally, but speaks a language which is visual, gestural and manual.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's good that you have invited me to give a little bit of talk about sign language, because first of all, when we talk about language, you really need to relook into the concept of language. The medium that we use, speech is just a medium. Sign language is another medium. Art is another medium of language. Music is another medium of language.
Okay.
But now why sign language is called a natural language?
It's a natural language.
Yes.
Okay. It's not, for many of us, it's a news.
Yes.
Yeah, we do not know it's an artificially created thing.
Yeah, they have that perception because the story of sign language actually dates back to, say, the 18th century. And it dates back to deaf education that started in France.
Okay.
How I will not go into the history.
Yeah.
It will take a long time. But in India now, recently, say 10 years ago, at least studies in sign language have begun. And there were studies comparing Indian Sign Language with Pakistan Sign Language by Ulrike Zeshan. Then there were studies by, first of all, a documentary of sign language was done by Madan Vishesh. He's from Gallaudet University, Woodrow Wilson, right from 1970s. They have compiled into 4 varieties of sign language in the country, in India. But that dictionary is simply a glossary of signs, but it has been helpful for the deaf community, because the documentation of sign language, when we document sign language, it means that there is a certain grammar operating within that language.
Okay, fine. Let me ask you the question. Why is sign language important in the society and in classroom?
Okay. Why is it important? First of all, if you look at the demographics of deafness in India, we have some studies says there are 4.4 million.
Oh, huge number.
There are some studies that says 13 million because of we cannot rely on the census also, because as you know that deafness is not visible, right? It's a disability which is invisible. So because of stigmatization, parents usually hide their children's deafness, right? Or it's also the case that by the time, say, they were born quite okay children, and say by the age of 3 or 4 or 9, they acquire deafness due to many factors, medical factors or genetic factors. So when that happens, the census cannot capture all that. Degree of deafness is another thing. And most of the case that, children may have mild cases of hearing loss. That's why they use the term hearing impairment. So when that happens, as they grow older, the hearing loss increases.
The degree level.
So it's called the progressive case of deafness. So a child of, say, at the age of 9, he or she may be studying, say, in class 6 or 5. By the time they reach class 10, their hearing ability has increased. And so usually in school, what happened, like you said, going to your question, why is it important in education? When we talk about including children with hearing impairment in the classroom, those with mild cases of hearing loss usually use hearing aids. And what happens is that those hearing aids cannot be well maintained. And based on research that I've conducted, many do not like to use the hearing aids because when there's thunder, lightning, it hampers. When there's any loud sound, it hurts their ear. Okay? So, and since they are children, they love to play, enjoy, and most of the time it's all defected, the hearing aid, So, and they're not comfortable because of that, so they switch to sign language. They enjoy learning in an environment where there is a language that they can understand, right? So most of the case, based on my previous research, since I was a student till date also, you will find that children in the classroom, when they come, there is a wider gap because of language.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So even if a hearing impaired child or a deaf child with a capital D, profound deafness, those who identify themselves as an identity, that they have their own culture, and when they write their names also with a capital D. So that is a linguistic entity, not a disability.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Yeah,
so that's why you might be...
it's a good thing.
You might be surprised that I keep using the word deaf. Because for me, I see them as a linguistic entity, right? Who has their own culture, a language of their own, and what identifies them as a community is their language.
Okay.
Sign language
let me
is
ask
the
you
medium.
a question. You said sign language has a grammar. So
Yeah.
and also you said natural language.
Yeah.
So in order to interact with children, having impaired children or deaf children, teachers need to know something, some aspect of it, or learn it.
Yes.
So in that case, how this we have to make a point to teachers and as well as children. It has a grammar. It's a natural language.
Yes.
I would like to request you to throw some light on that. What is that grammar this language has?
So as a linguist, when we study a language, we first of all look at the sound pattern of a language, how that language works. So, and when we started studying sign linguistics also, it's not based on sound. It's based on movements, hands. So how do we look into it? So the first thing is like I'll just give an example from spoken language. Say you have minimal pairs. Pat, pet, pit, right? You have these minimal pairs. And you know that when you change the vowels, you'll have different words. Similarly, now how do we document that per sound, a sound, ter sound? So we try to look at the hand shapes. So these are hand shapes. When I say, would you like to have coffee? Coffee.
Oh, okay.
You see, coffee. Okay. When I say to you like to have tea, tea. You see the hand movement is different. If you notice, this is one hand shape.
That's coffee.
Equivalent to per or ka or sir.
Oh.
Okay. If I say tea, this is another hand shape.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So if I say, like another example will be, if say, what is your favorite colors? Colors.
Oh, this is colors. Okay.
If I say you're dirty, dirty.
Oh.
Same hand movement, but did you see any difference?
Oh, in the facial expression.
Yes, so a facial expression also add another phonetical level to it.
So it has a grammar.
It has a grammar. I have not come to the grammar. I have looked at the inventory, how these hand shapes work. Because you cannot say finish and clean. This is clean, a slow movement, and this is finish.
Okay.
Right? So there are conventional rules that govern that language.
Like any other language.
Like any other language, you cannot put per, ta, 3 consonants without the vowel, right? To form a word. True. There are certain hand shape, movement, location of the signs and facial expression. These are the 4 most important things. Of course, there are the 5th feature, which I won't talk about it now. It's too complicated. So these 4 features are very important that makes one sign differ to another. And these are governed by certain grammatical rules.
Like any other natural
Like any other language. So you have these differences across sign languages.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
fine.
And we may assume that because it's visual, it's manual, then these hand shapes are common, these facial expressions are common. Yes, there are certain elements of sounds even in speech that are common to all languages, right? We have nasals.
Okay, fine.
Yes, you've understood?
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me go to the grammar.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. The grammar is this, that, it is structured in the same manner. If you say that I am going to the market, you say that in English, Hindi, or any other language, right? In sign language also, you don't have to actually act out on every action. Me, market, I'm going.
Okay.
Or in Indian sign language, market, go. The verb comes at the end. So in American, it's a different grammar. In Indian, it's a different grammar. Structurally, they're also different from one language to another. And there may be many varieties in India, considering
Indian languages.
Considering the Indian diversity, culture.
Oh, everything, even culture also.
Because sign language is not based on any other Indian languages. They cannot represent. Similarly, like we have Hindi variety of Shillong from where I come from, and the Hindi in Delhi is totally different. If I speak Hindi, probably they will understand, but
the grammar
is different.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You brought out this has to actually get across to teachers, because it is a language, it is a grammar. Children need to understand. Teachers need to understand in order to reach out to children. Okay. Let me ask you my another question. The relevance of sign language and the need for teachers to understand sign language in an educational context, particularly in the classroom context.
Yeah. I'll quickly say that. There's a lot to say about that, but I'll quickly try to say it. First thing first is this. When you talk about deaf education, we have been going under the mode of what we know, we've understood as oral form of communication is the best way to teach deaf children in order to integrate them into larger mainstream society. Now we're going for inclusive education. We're trying to say to give equal opportunities, equal access.
And
right?
All children are in the same classroom.
Yeah, in the same classroom. It's easy, ideal, but practically it's very difficult for a teacher to teach and sign at the same time. So hence even our NCERT National Curriculum Framework 2005 talks about sign language should be the medium of instruction in the classroom. Right? It also, even in the Index of Inclusive Education, it talks about that we should ensure, like we ensure mother tongue as a medium of instruction for tribal children, we also expect to do the same thing. Right? But the problem is that in reality, most of our teachers are not trained in sign language. They're not trained, and our B.Ed syllabus have not incorporated sign language as part of the course.
There's a need for that. We'll make a case for it.
There's a need for it, and there are certain B.Ed syllabus which RIEs might be following that also include inclusive education as part of the paper, right? But in that, even sign language is absent.
Okay, we will make a case for it. Let me take you to another question. From all the discussions we have so far been, one thing comes, there's a need to document and disseminate the sign language, and every aspect of it for wider use.
Yes.
How this could be done?
See, like I said right from the beginning, that sign language is a visual gestural language which use hands and facial expressions. So it's impossible to write sign language, but as a linguist, that is a future thing which it's possible with the use of ICT technology in documenting a language which is visual. Right? And there are certain scripts, notation system which we can write. All over the world there are, but except in India we don't have a script to write sign language. Okay, maybe later that is another discussion, but for the school purpose we need to document sign language in terms of ensuring that, suppose if I'm a teacher teaching in class, say I don't know the word for a background, the word background or the word science or the word, any word that we use in education. So teachers can access. So we should ensure resources to the teachers. Teachers are of the opinion that yes, we want to use sign language because whatever we're teaching is difficult, they don't understand, and in the end the child suffer just memorizing visual symbols. Right? So hence teachers also need to be trained, need to be strengthened. So in order to do that, what I have done from NERI is that from my PAC program, I have documented a sign language using a web-based application, and probably in future we can make into a mobile application. So what we have done is that we have compiled the sign languages used across the region. Right, across the region, because even in Northeast itself you'll find varieties of signs at the lexical level. Okay,
there are differences.
At the word level, yes, there are differences. So what we have done is that we have documented, and so we call it the Northeast Sign Language Sign Bank. So we didn't eliminate the varieties, we incorporate the varieties so that it is helpful for teachers. and this variety shows the richness of the language.
Socially, culturally connected, rooted also, like any natural language.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's
yes.
great.
So we are trying, and what we have done is that we have selected the vocabulary items that are commonly used in the school. In the school, because so that the teachers can access and understand, and how does it work, so that when they teach, especially when they teach, because they often find that children cannot structure their sentence correctly in English, and in Northeast most of the schools follow the English medium. So I have based it on English, and hence that students will often write, missed out on articles, missed out on conjunctions and tense and all that, and teachers don't understand that they have written and represent it as the way they understand it in sign language. So their language is structured differently. So when they write, they sometimes write in sign language structure, the English.
So some of the components may be missed out.
Missed out. That's what. So, and in most sign languages also we don't have articles. There are certain ways of denoting tense. There are certain ways of denoting pluralization. So they don't understand the concept of ed also to a word in a verb form. Past tense. So
only the stem.
Yes, they're very. It's very difficult because most of the language we learn through listening, no. And for a deaf child, they simply see English visually and trying to understand how to use that language visually. So, therefore, the structure is important for teachers to understand. So, brief description we have provided here, and the phonology. Just I have shown you hand shapes and location. There's so many phonemes, right, that we use in sign language. The modality, the difference in modality, what is sign, what is speech, then the morphology, how words are formed in sign language, right? Okay. So this is child, children.
Okay, plural, singular and plural.
The movement gives different meaning. The movement also entails certain grammatical categories of that that word.
Great. That's good. This needs to get to teachers.
Yes, that's why we have compiled it in this manner, and the demographics of deafness in Northeast also I have compiled here, and brief profile of sign languages used in schools. If you can see from this, you will find that even in Mizoram they have the Meso sign language, and in Nagaland the only state that uses American Sign Language because of the introduction and in school by a preacher who has been trained in the American Sign Language. So these are the things that, information that teachers can get. And in this app also we have the team who is working from NERI, from our institute. And then the best part about this is that when suppose a teacher wants to know a word which she didn't find here. So what she can do is that she can send us their feedback. Please add this sign, incorporate this sign, or probably if the sign is wrong, they may think it's wrong, they can also send the feedback. We can keep correcting it, adding it.
So it will be useful for teachers.
Yes. So at the moment this is what we have done, and we hope that more things can be added, because in educational resources what I plan to add is that, see, for a deaf child reading in school, the visual text doesn't really help much. So if stories are presented in sign language, it will be more interesting, comprehensive for the child. So we plan to add those folk tales, which I am doing also right now. We want to add those for the children, so that children can also access this web app, not only for the teachers.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Melissa. It's really useful information for us, and we thank you very much. We will continue this discussion further in a series, and I hope before I close, let me ask you. I will tell you one or two sentences you have to demonstrate. The first sentence: what did you do yesterday? Second sentence: what are you doing now? Third sentence, what will you do tomorrow?
Okay.
So why I am asking how this grammar gets manipulated or passed on, conveyed in sign language. The first question is, what did you do?
First question.
What did you do yesterday? Yeah.
Okay.
So what are you doing now? Okay. What will you do tomorrow? Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Melissa. And I think that our teachers take this seriously and practice it in the classroom. Thank you very much, viewers, and we'll meet in the next discussion on language matters.